welcome back to Through the Garden Gate. It's Eileen again. And in our last video, we took a tour of the backyard. And so now I'm going to give you a tour of the side of the house and the front of the yard. So if you remember from the last video, we had the little solar powered fountain that's just going to town here through the fence. And that's the little solar panel that gets it going. This faces south here, so it does keep it running most of the day. I've got a couple clumps of spiderwort here. There's some volunteers of other things, a nice big clump of columbine here. This was a New Jersey tea shrub, but it doesn't look like it lasted through the winter for me. I don't know if the rabbits got at it. Some volunteer spiderworts here. And then a big change I'm making to this garden bed this year. I used to have switchgrass, a native grass. And I just want to try something different. So I was actually thinking about putting in those native New Jersey tea shrubs. I thought they would do really well here, but I'm a little nervous if that one didn't survive. Maybe I'll get a couple this year, pop them in, and see how they do. So what I did is I went in and really gave the switchgrass haircut really low, and then as it's growing back, I just keep like mowing over it super low. I may have to come in and tarp it this year and then add in other things next year. This is the Baptisia, the blue one, Australis, I think it's called, wild blue indigo or false blue indigo. And you can see I left all the stems up, and we're starting to get a little bit of new growth in there. So one of my jobs in the next couple weeks or week, I got a busy week ahead of me, is to cut this back. And then I leave hollow stems that pollinators can come in and use as cavity nests. And then all along the walkway up to the front door is New Jersey tea. And we're a little bit later in the afternoon now, so they're in the shade. But you can see some of the green growth coming in. That's last year's seed heads, so I'll probably come in and do some trimming on these. There's some stems that look like they're not living anymore, so I'm going to clean that up. And this one's got me nervous because nothing's budding out on this one. The rest of them at least have some green growth, so I'm going to give some things some time. And over here, I usually have a big patch, and there's some leaves right here, of orange coneflower, Rudbeckia fulgida, Fulgida, I think. And I used to cover this whole bed, and it's not doing so great. I'm going to get a few more plants and put them in here. That's a walnut that the squirrels buried, or the chipmunks, so I got to get that out of there. And then these volunteer wild geraniums. I mentioned in my last video that wild geranium does really well in my yard. So this is just to the right of my front door. In a previous video, we were in here trimming back these hydrangeas. You can see they're leafing out, and it is just completely full of wild geranium. And it's just beautiful. I love it. This is another one I used to fight a little bit because I'm like, oh, it just takes over. But it does pretty good. And I can tell you, our neighborhood fox is loving this stone wall. It runs back and forth on it, makes the dog crazy. So this is a garden that I worked on quite a bit last year. It had one of everything in here, and it was just really overgrown and looked messy. And so what I did is I cleared a lot of things out, and I added in prairie drop seed, which is the clumping grass you see. I tried to do it like a matrix. I've got to get a few more in here, I think, to kind of keep the dandelions out. And in between the prairie drop seed, I've got a combination of one of the I think it's sky blue aster, so that's one of them, the asters coming up. And then I also put in bee balm, so the Monarda fistulosa, and there's purple prairie clover. The bunnies love it, so I do fight a little bit with the bunnies about that. That's that one right there. And I don't think it's coming up yet, but I've got butterfly milkweed in here too. I don't see any coming up yet. So the idea is that the grasses will grow in and that you'll just see a sea of green grass and in between them at different times. So the purple prairie clover will probably bloom first, or the purple prairie clover and the butterfly milkweed grow around at the same time. And then the Monarda will be a little bit later in the summer. And then the asters will bloom in the fall. So my hope is that I have something blooming at all times. And then along the back wall, these clumps that you see right here are purple coneflower. So they're really nice and tall and are just beautiful. And then the hydrangeas have big balls of white flowers. So you get white, you get pink, and then all the other colors that'll be in here. But as you can see, I got a lot of dandelions. So I do need to get in here and maybe pop in a few more of the prairie drop seed. As they start to grow and spread, they're going to cover more area. And then at one point we were transplanting something from the back of the yard up here, and apparently we got a clump of wild ginger, and it does pretty good early in the season, but then it gets a little too hot and dry here and it shrivels up a little bit, but it gets shaded out by some of these taller plants, so it's been doing pretty good. So you can see some of the prairie drop seed are doing great. Some of them didn't take, but there's a heck of a lot of weeds in here. And then I'll do this little bed here, and then we'll go around the north side of the house. So this whole patch is just prairie drop seed along the back, and they're pretty well established. And then we've got prairie smoke, which is a lovely full sun, almost like a ground cover. You can see there's a lot of like crabgrass and stuff that got in with mine, so I battled that a little bit. But as these get pollinated, you can start to see it happening back here. They get very wispy. It almost looks like little puffs of smoke. But they'll bloom very early on, and then as the season goes along, they fade away, but their leaves stay here, and usually they grow, you know, intermingled with this prairie drop seed here. So as the prairie drop seed grows and kind of flops over on top of them and helps keeps them shaded so that they can get through the hottest part of the summer without any real damage. Oh my goodness, is it windy. So some more established prairie drop seed clumps here. Another baptisia over here. All right, so we're back on the north side of the house, and we got some wild geranium. This bed's a little crazy, and these ferns get really big and take over. But these are the cranberry viburnums that we pruned in late winter. We had a video on that, and they're getting ready to bloom. So they're going to have these clusters here, and there'll be white flowers. And then when they get pollinated, they produce these really bright red berries. But this just grows like crazy. Lots of bluebells in here. When the bluebells start to fade, this is what happens. They kind of flop from the inside and you get this hollow center. But this vegetation will all die back. They're a true ephemeral. And then what will take its place are the Solomon seals. And then there's a lovely little jack in the pulpit right here that I just love to death. And let's see if we can zoom in here. Sorry, there's lots of bluebells in my way. That's the jack in the pulpit. Looks like he got zapped a little bit by the frost as well. I have some columbine in here. I'm not seeing too much of that right now, but the wild geraniums definitely have taken over. This is where the sump pump kind of comes out. There's a little bit of a hole in one of the connections, so it's like a little fountain. So this gets really wet in here. This viburnum is looking a little scraggly. I'm liking the way it's going right now. And you can see all that growth that's happened. All of this right here down to, what's that, like almost a foot of growth. So where the light green and meets the brown, all the green, that's new growth from just this year. It's crazy. Wild ginger in there. My goal is to have like all ground cover in here with just some flowering things coming up. These ferns, really do a job. And then there's a clump of wild geranium right here. This maple leaf viburnum I talked about before. It was looking really rough, and I actually did cut out all the dead stuff, so I need to pack that up, put it in my brush pile. But I'm trying to see if it'll kind of come back to life a little bit. And then that is elm leaf goldenrod. It can tolerate some shade. It's this beautiful. Is this my elm leaf or my zigzag? Oh my goodness, it might be my zigzag. We'll have to see. There's some Solomon seal tucking in here. I just scatter the berries everywhere, and I'm sure the birds and the squirrels and everybody eats those berries. There's a massive dandelion in there as well. From this perspective, you can see how crazy this clematis is getting, and I do really need to get in here and cut it back. Not cut it back, I'm sorry, tie it up. And then there's just a few little hostas in here. I did a bit of pruning and trimming on this summer, or this winter. I probably should cut this one here and this one. See how they're twining around each other? That's not good for the tree. So they shouldn't be touching. I didn't notice that. I guess I missed it when I was pruning. So I might come in and do a little bit more pruning. All right, let's go look at more of the front yard. This is the red bud I was telling you about, and the little garden bed in front of the red bud. These are some tulips that are a remnant, and they got zapped by the frost these last 2 days a little bit too. They're just really pretty. So you can see the red bud in the front yard is starting to fade a little bit. It's kind of done blooming. The leaves are starting to pop out. Oops. Leaves are starting to pop out, and they'll have these really pretty green heart-shaped leaves. So there's a whole bunch of stuff in here. There's spiderwort, prairie smoke. These are some sedges. I'm blanking on what kind of sedge I put in here. Lots of things self-seed. These are shooting stars, and they're just getting ready to bloom. Oh, I have a couple that are blooming over there, so we'll take a look at that. But those are the Midland shooting star. This is a wild hyacinth. You can see the flower stalk just coming in. This is showy goldenrod. Oh, there's my shooting star blooming. Let's see if we can. Those downward facing, almost like little rocket ship type flowers. Sorry about the wind today. It's very breezy, but sunny and beautiful. This clump right here is wild mountain mint. Here's some nice looks at the shooting star. And sometimes the blossoms have sort of a pinkish hue to them. They get these basal rosettes of leaves, and then they send up the flower stalk. And then right here is some of that butterfly milkweed starting to come up. Some more wild hyacinths. So what I did when I planted this is I kind of put in the sedges, I put in the bigger stuff in the middle, some of the other things like the prairie smoke and the nodding onion and the mints and the butterfly milkweed, and then anywhere where I had a gap, I popped in the wild hyacinth bulbs and the Midland shooting star. So they bloom in the spring, and then as we roll into summer, I get a bunch of other things blooming, and then it ends in the fall with some goldenrods and asters. So it's really pretty. The ditch garden, or the bioswale garden, is doing really well as too. We've had actual rain this year, so things that are supposed to be in wet soil are loving it. Wait for this car to go by. And we've got some blue flag iris. The marsh marigolds are starting to fade, but they really like the water that we had. You can see the dandelions did not. I think that little pale green thing there is cardinal flower, but we'll wait and see. These are some volunteer sedges. Again, the marsh marigolds. This is turtle head. These are the seed heads from it. Those are the leaves. Lots of dandelions, sedges. There's some spiderwort in here. That's that grass-like leaves there. This is a stem from a marsh milkweed. Asclepias incarnata is the scientific name. Those will pop back up. And then this garden here is where I've got a lot of work to do this year. I think I'm going to do something similar, but you can see it does get shaded out a bit by the oak tree. So I'm going to look for a grass or a sedge and do like a matrix in here, and just pop in other plants that can tolerate a little bit of shade. And one really fun thing, I don't recall ever planting these. I may have, but I don't recall it. But the trillium, the prairie trillium. Again, they're not looking great. I think that frost did a little bit of a number on them, but that's fun. And we get baby oaks in here and baby maples from my neighbor's tree. Lots of dandelions. So I've got a fair amount of work to do here. Put the hummingbird feeder out here as well. Some more prairie smoke. And there's some volunteer columbine in there too that I leave. And the daffodils from last year. And then this was a volunteer, probably from the other wild geranium plants. But I'm loving this, so we're going to leave this little fella here. Pollinators like to visit. And so that's this little bit. The rest is all vegetables. So let's take a look at what's going on in the vegetable garden. Excuse my mess. I was trying to cover things up when we had the frost. But we'll start over here. These two beds, the circular ones, are still empty. They're going to have beans. I'm going to do pole beans in this bed, just regular bush beans here. The carrot and onion bed that we planted in a previous video is doing well. The cold weather has kind of slowed them down a little bit, and then somebody is coming into the garden and digging. So I'm going to have to replant some of the carrots. I don't know if it's the chipmunks or squirrels or the fox, because I have seen the fox trotting through the other beds and marking his or her territory. But the peas are doing fantastic. I am trying to come out here and make sure the peas know that they're supposed to go up the trellis here. So I tuck them in a little bit, just get them used to. I didn't get them planted exactly where I should have by the trellis. So next year I'm going to know to actually plant the seeds like here. So I may have to do a little bit of training. But the lettuce is doing great. These were some of the saddest little looking lettuce plants that I transplanted in here a few weeks ago. But they all seem to be doing great. Try not to be in the shadow of it. And then these are volunteer spiderworts. I'm going to either dig them up or pull them out because they'll shade out the lettuce and the peas. That's another volunteer spiderwort right there. And then right over here, I usually get a volunteer bee balm. I see a few little sprigs of it coming up, but there's some nasty grass that I have all over the garden that drives me a little crazy. Oh, I got to get out here and water these. So I had so many onions left that I went ahead and put some onions in this bed. This is going to be green peppers. They can grow well together. So I'm put the onions in the border, and then I'm going to fill in the rest with green peppers. In a couple weeks, we're still a little too early for them to come out. These are some plant supports from various places and my shovel, but this bed's going to be another batch of beans, and I stagger the planting. So These will be bush beans. That other circular bed will be bush beans, and I'll plant one of them first and then the other one about a week later, so that I don't have all my beans coming in at once. This bed, I planted some potatoes in here. I can't remember which potato I put in which bed, but one bed is Yukon Gold, one bed over here. So these other two beds down here are more potatoes. One's a red potato, and one of them is like a russet, a white russet. And I still have lots of onions left. This bed over here will be tomatoes eventually when it's warm enough. And I put in a few onions along the edge there, because onions and tomatoes can go together, and the way the sun will come up, it'll hit that side of the bed first, travel around here, and so they shouldn't get shaded out too bad. But these were some extra lettuce plants that I just popped in here. And you can see, like, I actually didn't get everything quite covered up the way I wanted to Friday night into Saturday because I had to work late, but they bounced back. They did really well. And then I put the grass clippings from mowing the yard today in here just to enrich the soil a little bit. And out in front here, we've got some volunteer columbine and spiderwort. This is the broccoli bed, and I keep trying to keep this cover on, but this doesn't want to stay for whatever reason. This brick is not quite heavy enough to hold it, or the wind's too strong. We have had wicked winds all spring, so I am doing battle with keeping this cover on. And this is just to keep those little white cabbage butterflies out of here, keep them from laying eggs. But the broccoli's doing pretty good. We haven't had rain in a while, so I'm going to probably water in here today. There's a few onions at the end. And then here's another bed of peas and lettuce and leek. So those are the leek. There's some lettuce, and I've got somebody coming in here and digging around in here as well. They uprooted some of my peas, as you can see. They need some water. I've lost a few lettuce plants as well. I don't know what the problem is, but yeah, this is pretty dry. I need to get out here and water when we're done with the video. And then the herb bed, I've had to give the chives a haircut. They were starting to set flowers. You can see there's a flower right there. And I mean, that's not a big deal. I do let them go to seed or go to flower because the pollinators enjoy them. The thyme came back really nicely, but the rosemary and lavender died. So I have to get some more of those. So yeah, that's the garden. Front yard garden tour. Every week is something new. So in a couple, oh, there's a big old bumblebee queen over here. I don't know if I'll be able to get her. Right now in our area, if you see a bumblebee, it's a queen. They're just getting their colony started. I don't want to make you dizzy chasing her. But I'm really glad I've got things blooming for her, so she has the resources that she needs in order to get her colony going. And then she'll come back, or her daughters and will come back and pollinate my tomatoes a little bit later this summer. So that's it for the garden tour for today. Come back, check us out again. Hit like and subscribe. We'll take a look at these wild geranium as we say goodbye. So pretty. Very loud car or motorcycle going by right now. But we appreciate you stopping by. Hit that like and subscribe if you are enjoying what you see. And we'll see you next time through the garden gate.